Remember when Edward Snowden tried to tell the world, tried to warn the world, or he did warn the world, but hardly anybody listened? That NSA was spying on everyone. Well, he wasn't lying. Remember when Mark Zuckerberg built and launched Facebook all by himself? Yeah, no, I don't remember that. I remember he had help. Who'd you get the help from? Peter Thiel. What for? Palantir. That's how old this plan is. Everything's got a back door, just for Palantir. And who was in on that? Jeffrey Epstein. Gee, I wonder what college campuses Jeffrey Epstein worked at when Facebook was being made. Penny dropping yet? With remote access via laptops from a certain island or just from another intranet campus. Kind of like how we had in Tasmania once between Don College, Reese High School, a school in Hobart, and I think it was St Brendan Shaw College. An intranet that ran through the telecom lines. You know those lines still exist, right? Hardwire lines. Now, with all these social media platforms, TikTok, X, Facebook, and they're all linked in. It's all linked in. Get it? Spotify, Instagram, OnlyFans, all the adult chat sites, all the kids gaming sites, everything. So anything that your kids have ever done with a cam pointed at them, Peter Thiel and Mark Zuckerberg have access to it. Larry Ellison, Donald Trump, all the pedos have got access to everything that anyone's ever done in front of a camera, including this. Not only do they have access to it, it's stored forever. We've gone from a 7-year Data Retention Act, metadata. Geez, I wonder what meta's all about, eh? To 11-year Data Retention Act. To a cloud. Now to a hardwired setup with all the data centres and data farms. AI bots in phones, in warehouses, just chock-a-block full of shelves full of phones, agreeing with people, having conversations with people, arguing with people. What for? Well, what is there? They reckon there's 8 billion people in the world. Well, what if they got 8 billion bots? A bot for every person. A personality, personally matched, perfectly matched, specifically matched to every person in the world. I'm not going to get into, they say, the eyes are the windows to the soul, biometrics and so forth. I'm not even going to get into that. Just scan your iris here. Thank you. Now we have a blueprint of your soul. Because you know your brain, your eyes, like they cross over, but they're connected to your brain. They're actually part of your brain. The eyes are actually part of your brain. They're not just connected to it, they're part of it. Anyway. You see, with a bot matched to every person, and they want to make elections digital from now on, none of this paper trail stuff, and you'll vote with your digital ID. We already have mandatory voting. I don't vote. I didn't vote for this shit, you did. And you watch. They'll find some kind of evidence before next election that the last election was rigged and false. It's exactly the same game plan as what happened in America. They'll pull that shit in England. They're going to pull it here. They'll pull it in New Zealand. They're going to do it everywhere. All elections have been rigged. Ricardo Bosi told you that. All elections have been rigged. Probably. Clive Palmer told us that. He reckons he found a truck full of election ballots. A trailer just left in the middle of the outback somewhere. How'd you find that, Clive? Good find. You found the only nigger in a snowstorm. No disrespect for my brothers and sisters of colour. You've got all this AI deepfake shit. You've got the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ, all the corrupt people have been sitting on the Epstein files. Taking from it, adding to it, redacting things. Fucking around with it. It's now tainted evidence. Dragging it out and dragging it out. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is passing things through Washington, through the House, getting it, and she's getting it done. A good thing for all the wrong reasons, or a bad thing for all the right reasons, depending on how you want to look at it. On how now if anybody takes anybody's biometrics or face and uses it to make a deep fake, you can go to prison for it. Heavy charges, big charges. Meanwhile, that technology's being improved, developed, to make it so you can't tell the difference between a real person and a deepfake, especially in a porn. In images and pornography and videos. A bunch of women have come forward saying that it's happened to them. Well, we can't verify whether it's true or false, whether they gave permission for that or not in the first place, so that they could be used to push an agenda. We'll give you $1 million if you stand up in front of the world and tell them that a deep fake porn was made of you. Meanwhile, can we just make this porn? $1 million to flash your titties, or just for your face to be attached to a body that doesn't really exist. A couple of pictures taken in a bikini, so you can stand up in front of the world and cry victim. Next thing you know, everything about the Epstein files is tainted evidence and inadmissible in a court of law. Meanwhile, all the hard evidence is being destroyed with bombs. All the tunnels, all the places where women and children were stolen and trafficked through. Well played, Bosie. Don't even look at Israel. Don't even worry about it. It's not relevant. Is that right, mate? I can't even get anyone to investigate where the buckets of money went missing from Epic Park. You all reckon that they were stolen, so where is it? It's a lot of money. People are still donating money to your cause. Your cause. That's rich. A lot of this information I'm about to show you can find with Whitney Webb, but man, she's hard to follow. Because once she gets going, she's like Twitchy the squirrel.
Tell you is going to change the way that you look at AI forever. It's not going to be pleasant to hear, but it's going to be very important. I intended on waiting until we hit 100,000 subscribers to release this episode because of the amount of research I did into it. I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to receive this and to completely understand it. I'll start with the fact that everything everybody's been talking about when it comes to the Epstein files is wrong, dead wrong. And the real issue with Epstein hasn't even bubbled to the surface yet. It's a much deeper, darker story. It starts in 2002, and it involves some of the most famous tech billionaires we have in our country.
Remember this dinner? Now remember, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, jack-offs and gerbils. I wasn't kidding when I said everyone's on the list.
Today, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Page. Now, I'm not one to bring you conspiracy theories. As you know, every single episode that I bring you here on Off Air is thoroughly researched and vetted and factual. That's the same with this episode. Everything I'm about to tell you is 100% absolutely true, and it's vetted, and it's unfortunate, and it is our new reality. If you spend your day on artificial intelligence, if you regularly log into ChatGPT, if you ask it questions and you receive answers and it tells you how to do your job on a daily basis, there is a very real chance, based on what I'm about to tell you during this episode, that technology is changing your life for the worse, not the better.
Apparently you can go from 0 to a complete site in just a single prompt with Wix Harmony. I don't know if this is going to be possible. Or vibe coding meets drag and drop.
I'm Ron Chapman, federal criminal defense attorney, former Marine Corps lawyer and investigator, and I'm going to bring you the story of the new eugenics Jeffrey Epstein, the godfather of artificial intelligence. There was a DARPA program. For those who don't know what DARPA is, it's the CIA-backed research wing. It does a lot of research into technology, and it's been the godfather of many very famous technologies, including...
Hang on there. TJ, very independent, works with DARPA. He gets briefings from DARPA every day. He's told us that. Starting to look at you in a different light, mate. And Caleb House. Doesn't look good, boy. Doesn't look good.
Facebook, as I'm about to show you right now. DARPA LifeLog was a program that was launched by DARPA. You can go online and look for the request for proposal. The design of this program was supposed to capture all Americans' information, put it into a LifeLog, track it, build it over time so that you can create an electronic database of every American, and in fact almost everybody in the world. Well, when congressional hearings started related to LifeLog, it was quickly killed by DARPA. Why? Because it came to the surface, because people learned about it, and because people became very concerned about the impact of all of their information online. This was 2003. This was back when we were a little bit more concerned about what we put into the computer. We weren't too far away from dial-up modems and AOL, and Bill Gates was still a name that was regularly talked about. As soon as LifeLog became public, DARPA quickly killed it. And they killed it on February 4th, 2004. That date is significant because that's also the date that a young hoodie-clad Mark Zuckerberg, sitting in a Harvard dorm room, launched what he called then the Facebook. The Facebook was designed as just a Harvard campus project. That's all Mark Zuckerberg intended it to be. But then, of course, he met the Winklevoss brothers, two relatively wealthy and backed individuals who worked with him on the project. And if you believe the movies, Mark Zuckerberg went in a different direction than the Winklevoss twins. But that's not the real story. The real story is right after Facebook launched, it got tens of thousands of users. 50% of them were on Harvard campus, and it struggled to get off the ground in other campuses. It wasn't until a tech CEO, Peter Thiel, then of PayPal, and a relatively famous figure in the Conservative Party now today, came to Mark Zuckerberg, a relatively unknown individual on Harvard campus, and offered him $500,000. Now, the one thing that you should all understand about Peter Thiel is at that point he was what's called an angel investor, but he was a different kind of angel investor. He actually...
We must also remember that Peter Thiel and Palantir want to hook up Hardwire into Australia. And they're coming. The government's already approved it. They fast-tracked Marinus for stage 1. And remember, I had a meeting with Ken from Marinus. And as soon as I mentioned data, he fell all over himself into a puddle. I swear he come in his pants. Sorry. But I saw what I saw. If you want to be... I'm missing teeth. Ken from Marinus is missing the entire lower right quadrant of his teeth. He's only got teeth on that side. So if you ever see anyone from Marinus that's missing all those teeth, that's Ken. Shifty. Used to work for Jackie Lambie. He's a politician that's been selected for that job. He can sell lemons to a lemon tree. In a used car yard. Marinus is all about data. It's all about this. It's all about this. If I can get a bit square and closer here. I know. I don't know how to do screen sharing. I'm not interested. This is good enough. It's about the intel.
Paid individuals to drop out of college and commit themselves to his causes. Thiel's club has launched some of the most famous tech startups. He's been behind nearly every single one of them. Reid Hoffman with LinkedIn was started right around this time period. Now, if we go back and look at Peter Thiel and say, why did he spend $500,000 on this project? Why was he one of the first venture capitalists? Why was he offering this kind of money to people like Mark Zuckerberg? You have to understand about what he built at that point in time.
Also, which I'm going to do a whole video on at some point. Through Palantir and Oracle and AI predictive programming, predictive algorithms and programming, they want to do away with judges and lawyers and stuff in court. So they can read your biometrics, basically a complete digital AI court system, fast tracking everything, and AI will be the lie detector. Completely regardless of how people react differently in different situations. People with PTSD, people with autism. We're going to see If we allow that to go ahead, we're going to see a lot of innocent people get locked up in the camps. Autistic people especially. Oh yeah, come near my kids, I'll fucking kill you. My kids are good.
You see, Peter Thiel was the founder of a program called Palantir. Palantir is the connector. Palantir is the brain, but the brain doesn't have the data that it needs in order to figure out artificial intelligence. Palantir is a company that takes existing information and connects that information together to draw conclusions. It's been going for a very long time. I used it when I was in the Marine Corps in Afghanistan, and I've spoken widely about Palantir because of how much I know about it. But Palantir is nothing unless it has users to put in data. That's where LifeLog came into play. The intent was people like John Poindexter of DARPA, the CIA, and the US military, Department of Defense, felt that they would be able to just get a project to collect this information that was government funded. But when there was pushback by the American public, they had to go a different way. And DARPA playboy Peter Thiel decided to go the way of a young hoodie-clad college kid to get the information that he deeply sought to make the connections he needed in order to control so much about our environment. For those of you who think the rags to riches story of Mark Zuckerberg is some amazing tale that we should tell our grandchildren, think again. Just about every social media entrepreneur back in the day of Peter Thiel's tech startups was blessed by DARPA. Why didn't MySpace win over Facebook? It didn't have DARPA backing. Why did LinkedIn win over the dozens and dozens of programs that were available that did similar things around that time? It was because of Peter Thiel and DARPA. Why did Instagram become so big? Peter Thiel and DARPA. Spotify, Peter Thiel and DARPA. Just about every single aspect of your
LinkedIn. Everything's LinkedIn. OnlyFans. Chatmeet, KooMeet. Omegle. WeVibe. I'm just trying to think of off the top of my head. All the old MSN stuff. All your emails. Dick pics. Nipple flicks. All of them. Everything. Everything. Text messages, phone calls. Ever hooked up a date behind your boyfriend's back? Oh, they'll use it against you if they want to. If they want to use you as an asset. Look, we've got this. Now, if you do this for us, we can make it all go away. Temporarily. Until they want to use it again.
Digital Life, Peter Thiel, and DARPA backed, blessing people in exchange for one thing: a backdoor of information to be collected from users, cell phone location, and a tremendous amount of user data. Now, what does this have to do with Jeffrey Epstein?
A single policy decision in Beijing just created one of Australia's biggest mining opportunities in over a decade. China imposed sweeping export restrictions on rare earth elements in April 2025. They control 90% of global...
That's the curious part. A lot of people aren't aware that Jeffrey Epstein is one of the first godfathers of artificial intelligence. Back in 2002, he had a conference where he supported some of the most famous names in artificial intelligence who were intending to solve a problem at that time. If you wanted a clean, reassuring origin story for modern artificial intelligence, you'd probably start with a university lab, a whiteboard, and a grad student surviving on ramen noodles. You'd not start with a private Caribbean island owned by Jeffrey Epstein. And yet, in the spring of 2002, a group of prominent computer scientists met with Epstein on his property for what was dubbed a common sense symposium. This was later documented in a 2003 AI magazine paper that thanked Epstein for his generous support. What were all these AI researchers gathering for? It was to solve a problem in AI. The topic itself was academically respectable: how to give machines the everyday common sense humans use consistently without even noticing. The venue for solving this problem was uniquely Epstein, and it's the kind of venue that institutional ethics would be very concerned about. The 2002 symposium, located in the Virgin Islands, founded by Jeffrey Epstein, was a gathering that was later described in print, one that brought together the most influential artificial intelligence figures, including Marvin Minsky, MIT's AI lab founder, Ken Ford, NASA, and DARPA ties. Their shared goal was technical: to solve the common sense problem, the gap between machines that can recognize patterns and machines that can reason like a normal human being about normal human things. Like why you shouldn't store ice cream in the oven. This is very important because the common sense problem has always been a but of AI. It was never really addressed, but it failed many projects. Pattern recognition can be astonishing. Reasoning about the world like a person, that's where AI tends to trip up. And in order to solve the common sense problem, it's common sense that you need a lot of money. And that's where Jeffrey Epstein was very skilled. Some people, in fact, said that he collected scientists like some people might collect art. Why was he doing all of this? Well, it's because he had his own nefarious motives. So in 2002, the AI researchers gather, they talk, a paper is published that thanks Jeffrey Epstein for all of the support, and then the researchers scatter the globe and start working in their individual tech companies, and out springs Facebook, LinkedIn. The technology from PayPal spiraled across the globe and started collecting data for Peter Thiel and Jeffrey Epstein himself. But Jeffrey Epstein didn't stop there. According to MIT's commission...
Remember when Facebook was just starting to get about? And then Australia came out with the 7-Year Data Retention Act, extended to 11 years. We've already had databases. So everything that's in the cloud is kept in a hard... It's kept in a hard drive somewhere. We're talking hard drives as big as warehouse complexes. Everything since 2015 I've already got. They're about to unleash it.
Investigation, Epstein donated roughly $850,000 to MIT between 2002 and 2017. After the Virgin Islands meeting, it was very important that this research gets done, and Jeffrey Epstein paid for it. But he paid a lot more to others. He even paid $750,000 to MIT after his 2008 conviction that everybody's well aware of. Now, the donations to MIT paled in comparison to what he purportedly gave to Harvard. Harvard had an investigation after it was found that they received such a large donation from Jeffrey Epstein. $6.5 million donated by Jeffrey Epstein, most of it in the hands of a researcher named Martin Novak. I'm going to talk a bit about Martin Novak because he's very important here. Martin Novak was the founder of the PED laboratory at Harvard. This was the laboratory that Jeffrey Epstein had a private office in. He had a swipe card and access to the entire building, and even after his conviction, he was able to visit many times, over 40 times. The PED laboratory was part of the Program for Evolutionary Dynamics. Now, you could hear the words evolutionary dynamics and think that this is a groundbreaking concept, but what it really is a dressed-up version of eugenics. Martin Novak is originally a mathematician, and most of his research was based on the idea of cooperation, why some parts of the species might cooperate with others, even if it ultimately leads to their own demise. You see, people like Epstein and Novak were absolutely obsessed with the future of the human race and the problems of the human race that are caused.
The Borg. I've posed this a few times. if it's a clone, or if it's conceived outside of a womb and carried inside of a clone, is it considered to have a soul? Now let's look at this soul situation from a scientific and legal perspective. Not a lawful one, not a right versus wrong one, a legal perspective. If it is considered to not have the spark of a soul, you see, for some reason they seem to have footage under a microscope of when a soul it enters the body on conception. Wonder where they got that in a petri dish. I've seen it yesterday. Don't know if it's AI or not. Looks pretty impressive. It's an actual spark. Now, if there is no spark, does that child have any rights? Is it considered human? Therefore, is it just medical waste? See, they also have ways with nanotech the size of a grain of sand where they can inject that into a cerebellum to genetically modify a child at the point of birth before it exits the womb. Therefore, it is not considered human anymore because they've altered its genetics before it's taken its first breath. Therefore, has no birth certificate to speak of. It's considered as just biological matter. Hence why Amy's List pushed for full-term abortion. It's not just about killing babies, it's about altering the RNA, modified RNA. Anybody? mRNA? How many people are already modified and don't know it? How many people's seed and ovaries and wombs and embryos, like how many people have modified RNA that are going to give birth to a genetically modified species of human? How many has it already happened to? Freaky shit, isn't it? Not as freaky as these bastards that are doing it.
By reverse Darwinism, the idea that as we become more technologically advanced, we as a people will begin to fail. And I think to some extent we do see some of that evidence present, but they took it to an extreme extent. Investigations later described Epstein as being physically present, treated as a known quantity, and given institutional accommodations that go well beyond a pat on the back and thanks for your support, and look a lot more like integration into Harvard itself. With Jeffrey Epstein entrenched at PED and also at MIT, he had commanded respect in two of the most important institutions that were developing research in the area of AI and ultimately eugenics. MIT's Media Laboratory famously referred to Jeffrey Epstein as Voldemort, or the one who should not be named. They avoided saying his name because they knew who he was, they knew what he was about, but they just couldn't stop taking his money for research. The logic's almost poetic in its candor. If a donor's name must not be spoken, everyone already knows where the money is. If the plan is anonymous and not publicized, the institution's admitting it's not proud of where it's getting its donations. Epstein had positioned himself globally as a connector, and certainly inside of the United States as a connector in many different institutions. But he was ultimately the funder of artificial intelligence and this sort of research. Starting in 2002 in the Virgin Islands, moving forward to large donations, he kept very firm relationships at MIT and Harvard, even after his convictions. But what's more troubling are some of the statements that Jeffrey Epstein would later make that reveal what he was really trying to develop with all of these donations. Now, before we get into that, I want to take a second. I would certainly appreciate it if you would consider subscribing and potentially becoming a member. I, along with Legacy Podcasting, put together this program for you, and it takes a lot of resources, and that subscribe means so much to me, and your membership does as well. Now, you might say, okay, Ron, what's the connection between Jeffrey Epstein, Facebook, and DARPA? And that's where a gentleman named John Poindexter comes into play. He's a former NASA director who led DARPA. He led the Information
Whitney Webb talks about him a lot.
Awareness Office. He was actually the founder of the Information Awareness Program that I mentioned to you earlier. He founded the Total Information Awareness Initiative, that was the program designed to get information on nearly every single American citizen. And of course, when that went out of favor, he had to find a way to get Americans to willingly give up the information themselves. And according to Wired's reporting, Poindexter met with Peter Thiel and Palantir co-founder Alex Karp in 2004 and told them that he had an interesting idea to apply data mining techniques from fraud detection to counter-terrorism operations. Experts like Poindexter were really trying to solve post-9/11 problems, and that's where Total Information Awareness came about.
In today's day and age, define terrorism. What is a terrorist? Is it an enemy? It's an enemy of the state, yeah? Well, what happens when the state becomes an enemy of the people? Which it is. People think terrorists are people that leave backpack bombs in shopping malls and so forth. No. If we don't stop all this bullshit legislature going ahead, they'll send the cowboy turtles, the turtle cowboys. Yeah, the anti-domestic terrorist police with their full turtle suits to come and collect people like me just for making these videos. Now, you don't have to agree with me, and I don't have to agree with you. And if you make videos that completely disagree with what I say, so long as you don't slander my name personally and speak untruths, if it's true, it's true. That's fine. But there's no need to go on with that unless I'm still doing those things, which I'm not. So, my point being, we should have the right to disagree with each other and not one of us be called a terrorist because of it. Because what happens if the shoe's on the other foot? Would I have a right to have you put away for re-education because of your political views? No. So long as you don't harm anyone. You can be cooking if you like.
Of course, they had the benefit of a law passed by Congress at the time that George Bush was president and signed by President Bush, allowing almost complete access to the public's information and instilling FISA courts. At that point in time, the government was at the most powerful. The CIA, DARPA, would be able to get as much information as they possibly could. And with the aid of Facebook, and fast forward over 20 years, CIA officials would tell you that the number one source of information on the American public are apps like Facebook, Spotify, and LinkedIn. Shortly after, we would learn that Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, would sponsor a dinner in Palo Alto, placing Epstein at the table with Musk, Zuckerberg, and Thiel, all of which who would move forward and champion cryptocurrency as a tool for the future. They realized that the information is great, but the financial system is still tied to governments, and deleveraging the financial system from the government would allow this sort of technocrat explosion to occur and ultimately give them the power that they need. Now, great, you've got Bitcoin spiraling forward. You've got all of the information that you want on Americans. You have them willingly giving over their information, and you no longer need the total information awareness program. You're moving forward full steam ahead. Then a gentleman named Edward Snowden, who I once would have villainized, but now I might consider championing, came forward with information about a program called PRISM. I've done episodes before on the startup of PRISM and how that came from software that was stolen by the government around the time that Bill Clinton was in office, had the ability to connect information on all Americans and also collect information overseas. Edward Snowden was a whistleblower and told us how the CIA and the NSA would have the ability to collect information on every single American through all the digital devices that they had. That's where your information from Facebook was going.
You see why they want to go digital with elections? They can swing an election in any direction they want in real time now. It doesn't have to be ballot boxes. It doesn't have to be. There'll be. You won't need to lodge a postal vote. You'll just be able to do it with your phone through your digital ID. And you won't know either and or. What registers as a blue vote on your phone can be a red vote at the ballot. And you've got no way of verifying for, against, or indifferent. This is why I like carbon. This is why I don't do phones. This is why I can't even log into MyGov anymore. Sorry. Gonna have to talk to me face to face. You're gonna have to send me post in the mail. Oh, you sent you. We left you a message in your MyGov. Yeah, I can't get into MyGov. Oh, would you like to use? I told you I can't get into it. I don't have a phone for you to send a password to. I can't get into it. We're going to have to sit at the desk and sort this out now. And so, no. Oh, well, can you get on it? What did I just fucking say, idiot? Like, this is pretty much how our conversations go at Centrelink. Or anywhere. Medicare. If you go onto this app, anywhere I go, if you download that, on me fucking hand? On me abacus? Sorry, I'm not playing. I'm not playing your silly game. I'm choosing to stay untainted, unmodified, unrestricted. Wait, is he going to stop me from eating? I know how to grow seed. Not just food from seed, I know how to harvest seed from it. I know how to snare, how to trap, how to hunt, how to skin, how to gut. Fine by me. I go and live in the bush like a caveman. That's not for everyone. Done it before. I have done it before, so I'm tried and tested. I lived for a year in a cabin in the bush, nothing, no power, no plumbing, nothing. And I lived quite well. I'd go back to it in a heartbeat. So you watch, like they've already been doing it, and you got the likes of Ricardo Bosi pretending to be your friend when he's actually the enemy. All elections are rigged, they're all false. We want to get onto a blockchain election system. We've been hearing that pushed for the last 3 or 4 years, haven't we? Digital elections where you can vote on your phone with a completely secure blockchain system. What do they call them things? A VPN. Well, you think a VPN makes you secure? It makes you secure into their system. So, nothing gets lost and it's a direct transit. You're signing up for your data to be kept somewhere, not to keep it safe. Keep it safe for them. Not for you. You fucking idiot. For someone who's not very digitally inclined, I seem to be a little bit onto it, don't I? It's because I understand, I hate that word, it's because I can calculate how minds work. Cause and effect. Why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? Not why is the algorithm doing it? Why did they invent the algorithm in the first place? You watch One Nation hop up and down here soon, because remember Clive Palmer said he found a semi-trailer full of ballot boxes in the middle of nowhere? I don't know if I've already said this, I've already made this video once, and just before it finished the power went off and back on. So I had to start again. That was, he done well to find that nigger in a snowstorm, didn't he? No disrespect to my brothers and sisters of colour. We're all just people. That's just something my granddad used to call a dessert. Raisins in rice pudding. Niggers in a snowstorm. They're going to claim that all the elections have been rigged and we need to go digital. Outcome's already decided before the booths open, before the app is switched on, before they open the blockchain, your voting wallet.
Now, there's a law that prevents America from spying on its own citizens. But when they give that information up willingly, all you need is a back door. That's one of the reasons why it was so important for Peter Thiel and John Poindexter to start these sorts of operations. That's another reason why Donald Trump pushed so hard, along with Joe Biden, in a unanimous effort to try to reduce TikTok in the United States. You see, if your government has control of Facebook, if your government has control of Google, and the Chinese don't have control of those, you're safe. But when a Chinese application starts to come into the United States and collect just as much information, that spells problems. In fact, I think what we did with TikTok is almost the greatest admission that your government is behind the information collection of Facebook and Google. And so, of course, Edward Snowden blows the whistle, we finally learn what PRISM is, and some of the information that we can gain from that is absolutely alarming. But that still wasn't a signal that it was used domestically, and we wouldn't find that out until the Cambridge Analytica scandal. I'm going to talk a bit about Cambridge Analytica, but I think it's important that we get to it in another episode as well, so make sure you hit like and subscribe on this one so that you can get notification of that. Also, in my last book, Truth and Persuasion, I wrote an entire chapter on the Cambridge Analytica scandal, and while I'm going to give you some new information and new research, it would be important to get some background in that book, Truth and Persuasion. It's essentially how the digital environment has changed us drastically. If you got a copy of the book or if you read it, let me know in the comments. Make sure you tag me in it, and I'd be happy to hear your thoughts about the book. The Cambridge Analytica scandal, for those who don't know, started well before it hit the United States. You see, Facebook and Peter Thiel connected a back door inside of Facebook software. That back door allowed certain other institutions and entities to get a hold of information. Cambridge Analytica paid Facebook a lot of money for a contract that allowed it to get not just the information on the individual user, but also get information on their friends and data that might have been already located inside of their phone. That meant that when you logged into Facebook, Facebook was storing not just your data, not just your user data, but also data from the friends that you'd connected with, whether or not they'd opted in on those privacy settings. Facebook settled a very large lawsuit with its users and immediately tightened up after the scandal. But the problem is not just that Facebook leaked the information, it's why. You see, as you know, Peter Thiel was early in on the founding of Facebook, and those back doors are very important, especially when they go to his friends. Now, most of you know that I'm a relatively conservative person, but I fight power wherever power is, especially if it gets corrupt, and I take issue with what happened here. So I hope you're a bit patient with me. Peter Thiel, a well-known conservative, but also somebody who believed that Brexit was a good thing, and also somebody who believed that Donald Trump should get in office in 2016. And while I will not say the Cambridge Analytica scandal was the result of Trump's presidency, what I will say is that it is the result of a database of information that very well can be used for bad. And it's very possible we may not have another free and fair election in our country's future. The founder of Cambridge Analytica was from a marketing firm, and he teamed up with a very smart programmer. They decided that they would try to influence some elections overseas, which was a great way to make a lot of investors a ton of money. They tried it in a few countries, Singapore and others, with some mixed results. They were refining it before they brought it into the UK and also to the United States. When they had almost 50,000 data points on every single American, enough to know just about everything about you, they decided to spring it loose to the highest bidder. What does that lead to? And what's the impact of that? Well, when Facebook knows a lot about you, Cambridge Analytica knows a lot about you. They know that they can split you off into a silo. If I drive down the street and I see a billboard, I feel one way about it. Another person may feel another way about it. If it's a lawyer billboard, I probably want to punch it in the face, being a lawyer myself. But these aren't billboards. These are little personal signs that can be individually consumed, which means if you look for the fear signals that somebody normally reacts to, if you put a bunch of different types of advertisements in front of them until you finally get them to react, you will know exactly how they react to a certain stimulus. I talk about this in my book, Truth and Persuasion, but there's two types of thinking, System 1 and System 2 thinking. And the first type of thinking is the sort of quick reaction sort of thinking that we don't even really think about. The second type of thinking is the type of thinking that is very intentional, logical. We sit down and we chart things out. You probably don't remember your drive to work very well because you were engaged in System 1 thinking. But if you sit down to solve a problem at work, you very well may be engaged in System 2 thinking. When we react to these fear signals on the internet, the Cambridge Analytica signals that get put in front of us, they appeal to our System 1 thinking, which means we aren't as conscious of what we are doing and the choices we're making. I've often said when I'm looking at a jury of 12 as a lawyer standing up in front of them arguing a case, for the first time in history, these 12 people may have absolutely nothing in common with each other. They may be operating from very different algorithms. They may be basically speaking the same language. One person may be getting a whole bunch of Russian misinformation. Another person may very well be getting a lot of liberal misinformation. And another person may be getting some fear signals that are just completely out of left field. It's one of the reasons why at Thanksgiving, when you ask your uncle to pass the gravy, he might respond with something like, if you believe that the Charlie Kirk shooter did it, no. And he throws it in your face. That's because these algorithms are crazy and they're designed to silo individuals and get them to react to their own different fear signals to get them entrenched into a belief. This is one of the reasons why on my program I spend so much time being fair and balanced and showing you all of the information. I want my viewers who appeal to System 2 thinking. I want you to logically sit down and be critical and analyze this. I love it when people...
When will these money laundering criminals be imprisoned? Very clever. The AI algorithmic bots do that. You even have friends that do that. They're triggered by it, don't realise it. They believe two things at once that they hold two opposite beliefs at the same time. That's insane. That is nuts. Which is why I'm not bothering with anyone around here lately, because everyone around here seems to be like it. They believe two opposing opinions at the same time. How can you have a conversation with someone like that without being crazy? So that's, I try to appeal to the tier 2. There's a book called Respond, Don't React. It kind of goes along the lines of count to 10, take a couple of deep breaths. Think about how best to appropriately respond to whatever that thing, issue or situation is. See it for what it actually is, not for what you reactionarily, is that a word? Reactionarily? Spontaneously react. If you spontaneously react to something, you probably just triggered yourself. And now it just goes south from there, doesn't it? Cops are easy to do that too. You find what triggers their ego and then watch them go.
People question me in the comments, or even offer a correction if I get something wrong. This is a community that builds the right way, not based on fear signals. You won't see that from me. So if you want more of that, feel free to click subscribe. So Cambridge Analytica has a database. It knows how to operate on fear signals. It knows how to get people's attention, and it starts using advertisements to start swaying the way people think, the way people vote, the way people interact with each other. Now, this information finally became available to us because of a whistleblower, but if that hadn't happened, we wouldn't know that Cambridge Analytica was silently influencing most people in America in a way that prevents us from having control of our elections in the future. You might question that, but the reality is, a lot of us are powerless with strong appeals to System 1 thinking. That's not from me, that's from a researcher, Daniel Kahneman, who's been very prominent in the field, cited widely, developed these types of thinking, and he developed them directly from test cases in World War II. All right, so we've covered Cambridge Analytica, we've covered Facebook. Now it's important that we wrap all of this together by discussing Epstein's worldview and the worldview of many of his supporters, including potentially Peter Thiel himself. I think that we can sum this up the best way by discussing a breakfast gathering at Jeffrey Epstein's 50,000 square foot mansion. He was surrounded by former heads of state, executives from Google. He was in the presence of a former Israeli prime minister. When he was asked about Novak, about the Harvard research, he said something that was very curious. He informed this group of distinguished guests that Novak was doing research into cancer, but the way he explained it was very curious. He said, when you want to find a suspected bad actor on the global stage, one of the things that you might want to do is collect all the information about them, the signals, the connections that they have with other people. He said that's the way that you would want to treat a cancer cell. And then one of the things that you want to do is you want to starve out that cell by destroying the connection. You see, in conversations with many high-ups, Jeffrey Epstein had repeatedly referred to this sort of eugenics in very odd ways. In many conversations, even with Novak himself, he referred to our species similar to the way that he would refer to biological organisms. And he would say things like, dead organisms need to be washed away. Those that aren't useful to the body or useful to the system or are cancerous need to be wiped away. When he would talk about cancer, he was routinely not actually talking about cancer, but he was talking about those things that are harmful and no longer serve a purpose. Now, there's a lot of other things that you could say about Epstein. Certainly, he wasn't a very good guy. But one of the things that you should be very suspicious of is that he was the founder, and in fact, the influencer who originally started deep research into artificial intelligence. And this sort of mindset that he shared along with Novak, along with Peter Thiel, the idea that democracy is dead, that humans are heading in the wrong direction, that there's going to be this rise of artificial intelligence technology that will likely take over, starts to get him and other people somewhat concerned that the human race is not up for the challenge. And that's where dangerous thinking starts to come into play about tuning the human race in to something that might be sustainable, even if that isn't all of us. These are the same ideas that were shared by Nazis. These were some of the ideas that Adolf Hitler equated to Nietzsche's thinking that was essentially incorrect. It appeared that Jeffrey Epstein was really obsessed with the survival of the species. In fact, in an email between him and Ghislaine Maxwell, talking about another individual who I won't name, she said, wait, she's key. She has all of the DNA research. Jeffrey Epstein was obsessed with freezing his sperm, and one of the things that he wanted to do was be able to recreate himself later. He was also obsessed with the way that organisms interact with each other through Novak's research, and he was obsessed with the way that society interacts. He was working on some very deep projects along with very intelligent individuals who all shared the same eugenicist mindset. Now that's a lot for one episode, and the next episode I'm going to get a little bit deeper into Peter Thiel. I'm going to get into EDGE, the secret group that is promoting all of this research, and I'm going to dig pretty deep into the mindset of some of these powerful people and why they think the way they think and why it is so incredibly dangerous. But one thing's for sure, your use of AI, your use of artificial intelligence, putting information into the machines that we've been putting information into was not designed to help us or save us or help us do our jobs. It was designed to give pieces of your freedom over so that it could be observed, manipulated, and fed back to you in a way that allows individuals like this to control. On the next episode of Off Air, we're going to talk a little bit...
Which is why I was so fucking pissed off. With Burnie Community House, allowing that to happen with my face, allowing that to happen with my photo, being fed into AI to make a they say it was a garden gnome. It looks more like a leprechaun to me. It looks like an evil entity. I don't like it. I didn't like it. They gave me a copy. I came home, destroyed it, threw it away. Thrown away everything you gave me. And because I had a sook about it, and they sent the person around who did it with $300 worth of vouchers for me, saying it was from the Aboriginal community. He knew better. We were supposed to be mates, and he knows that I don't like that shit, and he did it anyway. That's why I'm finished with yous. You had no permission to do that. I told you I don't do AI. It's even in my registration, my induction forms, that you don't do any of that shit with me or my son. You ask permission for everything and you didn't. So anyway, needless to say, everyone's on the list. Everything's going to be hardwired. Into an intranet system that started in China. The first data center, security and surveillance system that feeds into Palantir and Oracle, built by Larry Ellison and co., started in China. Went from there to Jerusalem, to under the White House. They're building another one in Jerusalem. Well, it's supposed to. Little luck, that's all going to custard. What do you think Donald Trump's doubling down and tripling down and quadrupling down on destroying Iran? Iran had the capability to destroy that system. And my God, I hope they do. I pray to God that data centre does get destroyed. They don't want Iran to have nukes. This is, I'm telling you now, right? They don't want Iran to have it. Why? Because these data centres are 9 levels deep and impenetrable with conventional weaponry, conventional munitions. But they can't withstand a nuke. That's what they put under the ballroom of the White House. The ballroom's the lid. That's just the top. That's an impenetrable lid that they put on top of a data centre. If you go and watch a Dre dossier, she brings all the receipts, all the proof, all the evidence. The same costings, the same contractors, the same people. Larry Ellison, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Zuckerberg, Altman, Gates, they're all in on it. And people now are putting out an RF. People are putting out a radio frequency just by themselves. Dead people are putting out a radio frequency in the grave since the COVID injections. So just when you think that they're looking for knives on people with their little metal detectors, it's not what they're looking for. They're looking for radio frequencies. I know exactly how that sounds. Call me crazy. But that's barely scratching the surface. What you just watched is barely scratching the surface of what's actually going on. You wanted disclosure, you got it. You got it. You asked for it. You begged for it. Apocalypse. Revelation. It's all the same word. Comes with the double-edged sharpened sword coming out of his mouth. And all tongues will confess that Jesus Christ is King. There's no turning back now. You've opened the book. You've opened the Facebook.